The legend of Toomp, the richest hobbit who got exactly what he deserved. In the Shire, nestled between the rolling hills of Hobbiton, there lived a hobbit who was neither loved nor respected. His name was Toomp. While most hobbits lived their lives in a state of gentle contentment, Toomp was a walking disaster, a wealthy, entitled, and insufferably self-absorbed creature who regarded everyone around him as mere accessories to his own magnificence. Toomp had acquired his vast fortune through methods that were as questionable as his personality. He had a monopoly on nearly every lucrative business in the Shire, except for one, hobbit hospitality. For years, he had done nothing but sit in his gilded home, spending his wealth on oversized furniture, unnecessary decoration, and the most expensive pies that no one ever ate because everyone in the Shire secretly despised him. And then came the story. The heroic, inspiring saga of Frodo Baggins and his brave trek to Mordor to destroy the One Ring. The Shire was all aflutter with admiration. The hobbits held Frodo and Sam in awe, throwing feasts in their honour and singing songs about their courage. Toomp, however, was not impressed. In fact, he was furious. "What is this nonsense?" he grumbled one evening, a fine cigar dangling from his lips as he thumbed through the latest gossip scroll. "Frodo Baggins goes to Mordor on foot with nothing but a silly ring and a bunch of idiots following him, and they're calling him a hero? Ha!" Toomp's blood boiled. The thought of some fool hobbit with no wealth, no influence, and no sense of self-worth being lauded as a champion was too much for him. "I could do better," he muttered, glaring at his reflection in a nearby polished silver spoon. "Of course, it would have to be on my terms." And so Toomp came up with a plan. He would show the Shire what real heroism looked like. He would march into Mordor, hire a real warrior to do the dirty work, and return a hero. A rich hero. The journey to Mordor begins. Toomp immediately set out to hire a hero. It took some doing, but he finally found a human mercenary named Thrain the Terrible, a massive, bulging slab of muscle whose greatest talent was his ability to make very loud noises when angry. He wasn't particularly smart, but he was big. Perfect, in Toomp's mind. Thrain agreed to escort Toomp to Mordor in exchange for a hefty sum, which Toomp considered a bargain for the privilege of carrying him, naturally. On the morning of their departure, Toomp did what any self-respecting hobbit would do. He had a gorgeous new carriage built, gold trim, velvet cushions, the works. And naturally, he insisted on being pulled by a pair of fine ponies that he paid way more than necessary for. "I'll sit comfortably while you fight your way to Mordor," he told Thrain with a condescending wave. "Don't worry about me, just do your thing." Thrain, to his credit, tried to protest a bit, but Toomp quickly shut him down. "You're getting paid to do things, Thrain," Toomp snapped. "I'll handle the logistics. You handle the bravery." Trollshaws, where things really go wrong. As they entered the Trollshaws, things started to go horribly, horribly wrong. The trolls, of course, had no interest in Toomp's wealth or his exquisite taste in carriages. They were hungry, and they didn't care if the wealthiest hobbit in the Shire was there to observe their hunger. Toomp, not one to tolerate even the slightest inconvenience, frowned as Thrain drew his sword and prepared for battle. "Ugh, really?" Toomp whined. "You've got to be kidding me. I'm trying to get some peace and quiet in this wilderness, and now this!" "Master Toomp, stay behind me!" Thrain yelled, charging into the fray with all the heroism his tiny brain could muster. Toomp sighed deeply. Yeah, do your thing." The trolls, unfazed by Thrain's battle cries, tossed him around like a rag doll. Toomp rolled his eyes dramatically. "Honestly, can't you do anything right?" he muttered. "I hire one actual human for this, and what do I get? A disaster. This is why I don't do adventure. It's all so messy." In the middle of Thrain's completely one-sided battle, one of the trolls landed a blow that sent Thrain flying into a nearby tree. He collapsed, unconscious. Toomp, not even bothering to check if his hero was alive, scoffed loudly. "Idiot! Should have ran instead of charging into battle with that dumb sword. Really, who does that? Is it so hard to just hunt a danger? Is it really that difficult?" Thrain's heroic sacrifice. As Thrain slowly regained consciousness, Toomp started making his way back to the carriage. "I'm so glad I'm not involved in all of this," he muttered to himself, flicking through a stack of business contracts. "These trolls have no idea how to be efficient, and I'm definitely not sticking around." Suddenly, Thrain, ever the fool, stood up and dramatically threw himself at one of the trolls, yelling, "For Master Toomp! I shall die for you!" "Die for me?" Toomp repeated, barely looking up from his paperwork. "What did I ask you to do that?" he sighed loudly. "Thrain, you idiot! Why don't you run like anyone with an ounce of common sense?" But it was too late. Thrain had already received his reward, a mighty swat from the troll that sent him tumbling into the mud. Toomp scoffed. "Honestly, what is it with humans and their obsession with dying for other people? This is why I don't work with them. And I'm so not carrying him back to the Shire. The river, the mountain cat, and Toomp's demise." As Thrain limped toward the river to escape the trolls, Toomp casually continued to berate him. "Well, look at that! You actually managed to stay alive for once! Congratulations, you're the world's biggest disappointment!" Thrain, on his last legs, dashed toward the river, thinking he might lose the trolls in the water. But of course, that's when Toomp's day took yet another turn for the worse. A massive mountain cat, perhaps the only creature in Middle-earth with more disdain for Toomp than Toomp had for everyone, leapt out from the bushes and bit Toomp squarely on his rear end. "Ah!" Toomp screamed, shaking wildly as the cat clung to him like a furry vice. "What in the bloody hell is this?" Toomp panicked, racing for the river, but it was too late. The cat, locked onto Toomp's backside with a death grip, began to drag him into the water. "What is wrong with me?" Toomp screamed, "I have wealth, I have power! I don't need this! Why are you all doing this to me?" But the cat was relentless, chomping down harder with every desperate, flailing step Toomp took. As he splashed into the river, the mountain cat gave one final jerk, and Toomp, screaming, flailing, and generally making a fool of himself, was swept away. And thus the richest hobbit in the Shire was dragged, screaming, into the murky depths, his wealth and pride sinking with him. Epilogue: The Shire's Laughter. Back in Hobbiton, the news of Toomp's spectacular failure spread like wildfire. The Shire had never been so satisfied. For years they'd put up with his arrogance, his condescension, and his complete lack of regard for anyone but himself. And now the hobbit who thought he could buy his way into heroism had failed spectacularly, and everyone was thrilled. "Good riddance," they said, toasting with ale and laughing. "That's what he gets for thinking he could waltz into Mordor. Some things can't be bought, Toomp."